Hello everyone. So this is the part 2 of the buffer overflow video session that I have been doing. So this is actually the last part, and here I'll show the final steps that have been taken to accomplish this. So let me first show you what is the result that we're trying to achieve here. Then I'll explain how I went there. Basically resume from the part from where I left last. Maybe I'll link it somewhere. So this is the part 2, and let me show you the final uh, of our step that we are trying to reach. So this is the Windows instance that we are running. I'm running the vulnerable server inside Immunity Debugger so that we can trace different events. Let me start from the beginning. So this is the Windows machine that I'm running inside VMware. Let me check its IP. I'm writing ipconfig command. So it is 109. Okay, that's fine. So let me increase the screen size. I think this is big enough. Let me try to ping that system 192.168.0.9 so that we can check that it is reachable. So this is actually Kali machine. We have SSH into it. Kali machine is running on my local system in VMware itself. This is actually a Mac. So basically running 3 OSs at the same time. This is the Kali. Let me try to ping it. And yeah, we can access it. Okay. So let me run Immunity Debugger. I hope the font size is increased. I don't think so, but I guess we have to deal with it. So I can also run this vulnerable server, then try to attach it or open it from here. Let me show the other way because we did the open way earlier. So this is the vulnerable server. You can download it from GitHub. The link is in the description. So you can see the .exe. So just run it as administrator. And you see that this server is running. You can try to attach to it, maybe connect to it using netcat, nc, then the IP, then the port is 49. So yeah, you see that we are able to get into it. It says welcome to vulnerable server. If you press help, you'll see all the commands available, and we know that this run command is actually vulnerable. You see the fifth one. Okay, so we are able to access it. Now we'll run the debugger and attach this server to it so that we can debug it. Run it as administrator. Now here you'll click on attach, and you'll see that Immunity Debugger is a vuln server is running. So attach it. Click on attach. And you're good to go. It shows at bottom right it is paused. Let's click on play button, and it is in running state. Let me try to netcat it again. Yeah, we are able to. Fine. So we are at the final stage of this practice, and I have already crafted the payload, as you can see on the left screen. So the idea is, so the right is the Kali machine and left is also the Kali machine. Let me clear this screen up. So the right is also Kali machine and the left is also Kali machine. I've just split the screen into two halves vertically. So the idea is that let me run a netcat listener on this port. You will do that. So there are two ways in which netcat. So there are multiple ways netcat can communicate with each other. One way is that you create a listener. Listener is the place where it is listening for commands or text or anything. Netcat is basically a Swiss knife. So here first we'll set up a listener. NLBP is, and for you don't want to DNS resolution, you don't want this resolution. L is for listener, V is for verbose, P is for port on which we want to run, that is the 4 4s. And there, so this is the listener running, and then you can create a client on another system, and then they can communicate with each other. But in this case, we have created this listener on our Kali machine, which is the attack machine, and we won't create a client using netcat explicitly, but we'll create a reverse shell. So let me spend a few minutes explaining what is reverse shell. Before that, let me tell you what is shell. Shell is basically interpreter in which you can pass commands. Shell can run different programming languages. We typically run bash in it, but you can also run Python or any interpreted language in it. And what it does is basically it is a interaction between you and the OS to execute commands. So reverse shell is basically a shell whose input and output is governed over the network. So there are two kinds of this kind of shell possible. So you can say three. One shell is the one that I'm using. So this is also shell. This is terminal. The terminal runs a shell so that you can pass commands. This is one way of interacting where the standard input is the keyboard, standard output is the monitor. But you can create a bind shell. Bind shell is that your listener has bind a particular port to this shell, so that if any communication comes over that port, the standard input will be redirected to that, so that input goes to the shell directly and output goes over the network also. So in which you are binding a shell to a particular port. So basically you are listening. A reverse shell is that if someone is listening, you will send its shell to it over the network. This is what we are trying to do. We could have also done a bind shell here, but we are going for a reverse shell. So we create a listener on our machine first, and then we will exploit our buffer over vulnerability, in which what we try to do is that we try to execute our malicious code. So listen this step carefully. We want to run a malicious code, but this is not typically any system would allow. So the idea is that there is a vulnerability in the server. We exploited it and we were able to override the EIP. EIP register is the register which holds the instruction to the next command. And what is this next command? In the next command, we passed a command called jump instruction. That also I will show that how we are passing it. We'll pass a jump ESP instruction to the ESP, so EIP. So whenever it reaches EIP, we will redirect it to the stack, and in the stack we'll place our malicious code, which is the shell code. That also I'll show in this video. So let me show what is the result. So your listener is running on right. On the left, let's send the payload, and I have created the command for it. Yeah, so this is the command. I'll show you how you'll reach creating this command. And you'll see that on the right, we are expecting a reverse shell here. Let me hit enter. 3, 2, 1. Boom. On the right, you have a reverse shell there. And as you can guess from looking at that, we have accessed into a Microsoft machine, which is this one. Let me show you also. So let me create on the desktop a new file, maybe. Anything, a new file, just to show that hacked.txt. On the desktop it is. So let me go to the desktop, dir command lists. So you will see that there is a text that hacked.txt. So now you can control this computer, and I see that Windows has started popping up some notification that there is something fishy going on. Although I have turned off the firewall, Windows is getting better at it, for sure. So this is the end result. Let me show you how I went there, how I reached this point. Let me exit from it. So in the previous step, we saw that we were trying to identify the bad characters. And for that, we were doing a visual check. So in so -a flag says that what is the starting address of the EIP. Let me pass anything to the EIP, like let's say 41414141. Now I'm passing hex directly. It supports hex now, this Gopher tool that I've created. And this ESP, I'll pass all the hex characters that are possible. For now, let me try to send 424242424242 to see that we are able to see or not. As usual, our software world server has crashed. Cut. Resume. So as you can see, our one server has crashed, and you can see that EIP has 414141 there. That's good. We go to the ESP, and ESP has the ASCII character BBB because we are sending 4242. We can go to the following dump, and you can see that it has 424242 there. But we want to check for the bad characters. What we did for that is that here you will get the all hex value. So cat it all hex.txt. Let me copy it. I'm using tmux, so this is the way I copy. So this is the way I copy. Now let me pass it as an ESP. I may by mistake send it directly, but I have restarted the server. Let me try to restart it. Run. Let me send this command again. It should crash. Yeah, it has crashed. Let us follow the ESP. Follow in dump, as you can, and then you can see that there is 01, 02, 03. All the values are there. But this is the eye test that we were talking about. But we did this in previous step, that we were checking by eyes manually that what are the values there. We can 01, 02, and we were going to verify after FF that if there is anything bad in it, basically any weird character. But another way you can do it using Mona is that you have to first generate what are the you have to generate all the possible hex values, store it in a file, and then compare the ESP with the content of the file. So how you create the file is you do generate, Mona generate, Mona byte array. You will do something like Mona byte array dot bin. You don't need to pass .bin because two formats will be auto created. One is .bin, one is .txt. There is one bad character that we want to exclude, that we know for sure is bad, is \00. Basically 00 is a delimiter, so that needs to be avoided. Oh, I think this has happened because we have already created it. If you run this command, you'll see that it should be present in Mona already. We'll go to C. So basically you run this command and you should be able to find it. If I go to this PC, C, then Mona, one server, you see byte array.bin is already there. I think it got created once again. Let me delete a few. byte.txt and byte.bin is created. Now we need to compare. Instead of comparing manually, we'll do this compare command that is there in Mona compare, then pass the file name, that is C \colon, where we have this available. This is the path to the file. Then we are trying to compare it to contents of the stack, which is at, yeah, so let's see the stack. Where is stack? View, go to CPU. Stack ends with C8. So just pass the address there, which is 00 FE F9 C8. As you can see, the value of ESP. The value of the ESP we have passed. If I hit this command, you'll see that there are no bad characters. If there would have been bad characters, it would have shown here in bad cars file. So that is fine. There are no bad characters, which we already verified in the previous part, that there are no bad characters, that we verified manually. Okay, that's fine. Let us run the server again. Now we want to find, so now the next step is that there are no bad characters, we can create the shellcode, that's okay. Now like I was saying, we need to pass jump instruction to the EIP. We need to overwrite it. But we cannot pass the instruction directly to EIP because EIP contains the address of an instruction, and that address has to be EIP, jump ESP. So for that, we'll use the Mona command to find what are the modules available that doesn't have any restriction, because if there are restrictions, securities, then we won't be able to do pass the instructions. So for that, you'll do Mona modules. You'll see these are the modules available, but you are preferably looking for the place in which all the columns are false. ASLR and all are false, so I think ESS func is the one, so that's fine. So we need to find an instruction in this module essfunc.dll which has this jump instruction. So how you can do that is you'll do Mona, you'll do this command jump jmp. Jump ESP means jump to instruction, that is the assembly command, to the register ESP. You want to get rid of bad character, which shouldn't ideally carry the bad character, \x00, and in the module I want essfunc.dll because this module doesn't have any protections. Let us try to see the logs. So there are these 9 registers, 9 pointers possible. So let's go with the first one. Double click there and it will reach you to this part. Let us create a breakpoint here so that we want to see that we are able to reach this point or not. So if you go there and then go to breakpoint, right click and then hit toggle, so you know that you are able to reach this place. So now let's modify our ESP. EIP, so that we are able to reach this place. So EIP will pass the address of this instruction, which is 6550, this one, but the point is that you have to write it in backwards way, because that is the way Little Endian works. This is the way the register addresses are specified. So it would be AF then 11, AF then 11, then 50, then 6.2. Okay, let us see. It has crashed and we have reached this point. You can see the value of EIP is in bright blue and it shows that we were able to hit it. That's good. And now that we are able to preferably reach the stack, we need to put our shell code in it. And you can create the shell code using MSF Venom. This is the command that you will pass. Let me explain this command. I'm saying the MSF Venom to create a payload. P is for payload of type reverse shell TCP. Lhost is the host of your target machine, which in this case is the Kali machine, which let me confirm the IP once. It is 105. That's good. And then you'll pass the port on which the listener is running, our netcat listener, that is 44. Exit func is the way that you want to stabilize the code once it has exited. This is the part, and then with -b, you are saying that this is the value that you want to, bad character that you don't want your shell code to contain. If you would have found more bad characters, we would have passed it here. Then F is the format, and we want the output in hex. Let us append this to any thing, maybe shellcode tcp.txt file. You want the shellcode to be appended in that one. Let us see what is there in this file. Cat. Okay, so this is the file. Let us copy it. Copy the contents. And this is the one that will pass to the shellcode. We'll pass it as a value to our stack because we want our execution to reach the stack. So this is the shellcode value that we have passed. This is the point that we reached to. You'll just paste this value in ESP with the instruction of jump ESP there. The EIP value is this. Now let us pass the ESP value. Okay. So this is the way you can pass it. Just paste it in ESP file. And now let us run a listener. Let's see if the server is running. Let us rerun. It is running. Let's execute. And here you go. You have this shell available on the right. But sometimes it might be possible. Okay, so one thing, let me show you. So since I have already copy pasted this ESP value, you'll see that this value doesn't have this 9090 prepended to the shellcode. I have prepended this 909090 multiple times. This is called NOP-SLED, which basically means that if in case you are not able to reach the exact point in stack where your shellcode begins, maybe have some values available whose work is just to pass the instruction to the next address, which is NOP-SLED. You are sledding. 90 acts like that. So if our jump ESP command reaches anywhere in the NOP-SLED, it will eventually hit the starting of the shellcode. That is the idea. And that is how you get this reverse shell back. Let me show you. I'm able to execute stuffs and we are good to go. Let me know. So there are multiple ways to go about it. I went it this way. So let me know how you feel about it. This is the end of it. If there are any doubts, post it in the comments. Thank you for watching.